Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are cracking open a file that literally maps out the anatomy of a truly chilling urban legend. We're looking at a story about an apartment, a deeply forgotten history, and a terrifying cycle that ultimately leads us to uncover the true origin of a missing girl named Lily. Let's get right into it because, honestly, this one sets a suspenseful, campfire-like tone right from the very first line. Some dolls are made to be played with, others are made to watch. Wow, just let that sink in for a second. That opening quote from our source material perfectly establishes the extremely eerie premise we're about to dive into. Our subject today is a young woman named Emma, and she is about to find out exactly what kind of doll she's dealing with. Okay, let's dive into Section 1, The Mystery of Apartment 9B. So, picture this. Emma had just landed a new job in Chicago. On paper, Apartment 9B was an absolute dream, but there was a major catch. The apartment was cheap. Actually, scratch that. It was way too cheap. You know that feeling, right, when a deal seems just a little too good to be true? Usually it means the plumbing is a nightmare or you're living right above a noisy street. But for Emma, this mundane, cheap rental was masking a terrifying reality. When she asked the landlord why the rent was so unbelievably low, he couldn't even give her a straight answer. Instead, he just gave her this nervous, evasive smile and offered a super vague warning. He just said the last tenant left in a hurry, and that's all. Emma naturally just laughed it off. She was super practical and absolutely did not buy into ghost stories. So she's unpacking, right? And tucked way back inside her bedroom closet, Emma finds this old porcelain doll. Our source describes it so vividly. It wore a faded white dress and had these unbelievably real black eyes. But you know what the most unsettling detail was? It was completely, strangely clean. There was absolutely zero dust on it, almost like someone had just wiped it down. Tied neatly around the neck of this immaculate, creepy doll was a small, incredibly specific note. It said, "Never let her face the window after midnight." Emma, being the practical skeptic we know she is, literally rolled her eyes at this. She ripped the note off, threw it right in the trash, and in a wildly dangerous move, placed the doll on a shelf facing the window. Anyway, I gotta ask you guys, would you have been this dismissive? It's fascinating how the stress and chaos of moving into a new place can make us completely blind to giant, glaring red flags. She completely ignored the landlord's weird behavior and this highly cryptic set of instructions attached to a spotless doll. Wild. Which brings us to Section 2, The Midnight Phenomenon. Emma went to sleep thinking she'd just scored the real estate deal of a lifetime, but then she wakes up in the pitch dark. The time was exactly 12:03 a.m. Cutting through the total silence of the apartment, she hears a tiny tap, tap, tap coming from the living room. When she grabbed her phone to go investigate, everything looked completely normal, except for the doll. It wasn't facing the window anymore. It was staring directly at her bedroom door. Emma just rationalized it, assumed she must have moved it herself, turned it back around, and went to bed. But the next morning, she checked her apartment's security camera. The footage did not show her moving the doll. Instead, the video froze every single day at exactly 12:03 a.m., showing only static. And then, just for one terrifying second, the doll appeared much closer to the camera lens, before the footage just completely cut out. When she replayed it, the doll was gone. That night, Emma made a choice. She decided to stay awake and just watch the shelf. 11:58 p.m., nothing. 12:01 a.m., nothing. 12:02, still nothing. But the absolute second the clock struck 12:03 a.m., every single light in the apartment went out. Total, suffocating darkness. Her phone flashlight turned on automatically and she pointed it straight at the shelf. The doll was gone. Emma's breathing grew super heavy at this point. Then, in the pitch black, she heard them. Tiny, painstakingly slow footsteps right behind her. Tap, tap, tap. She spun around to find absolutely nothing. But when she looked back at the living room, the doll was sitting right on her couch, its head slightly tilted. And you guys, it was smiling. A smile it definitely did not have before. Now, what's really interesting here is how methodical and logical Emma's reaction is. She doesn't just freeze in panic. She executes this desperate disposal plan. She grabs the doll, shoves it into a heavy trash bag, drives literally across town, drops it deep into a public dumpster, and heads home feeling completely relieved. In her mind, problem solved. But the next morning, the doll was back. It was sitting right there on her bed. And to make it even more impossible and just downright terrifying, the very same trash bag she used the night before was still wrapped around it. This is the exact moment Emma's skepticism completely shudders. Moving to section 3. This is what we came for. The true origin of Lily. Emma finally realizes she needs answers. Fast. She goes online, does some digging, and uncovers this old, buried newspaper article. It turns out, 30 years ago, the horrifying cycle that Emma is currently trapped in was set into motion right inside her very own living room. Let's treat this like an evidence file for a second, because this is the true origin of Lily. 30 years ago, a little girl named Lily disappeared from apartment 9B without a single trace. The police completely struck out. They never found her. Literally, the only physical item she left behind was her favorite porcelain doll. The really chilling realization here is that Lily wasn't just a victim. Her vanishing birthed a curse. Every single family who lived in that apartment and kept the doll either moved away in a frantic hurry or they just vanished, becoming part of Lily's endless dark cycle. Section 4. The Final Escape. Fully understanding the true, sinister origin of Lily's doll now, Emma knows she has to get out, like immediately. While she's frantically throwing things into boxes, she calls her landlord. And his voice is audibly shaking on the other end of the line. He tells her, "I told every tenant never to touch it. You ignored the note." And before Emma can even formulate an answer, the call violently disconnects. That confirmation from the landlord makes it 100% real. By ignoring those rules, Emma has essentially sealed her own fate. She grabs her last box, so relieved to see the doll isn't inside it. She locks the apartment door and just sprints toward the elevator. But as the elevator doors slide open, her escape is totally cut off. The doll is standing inside, just waiting for her. And then the porcelain eyes blink. Just once. Emma screams, and the elevator doors close all by themselves. So the crucial point we arrive at next is that the next morning, apartment 9B is totally empty. Emma is just gone. The police search the entire building. There's no blood. There are no signs of a struggle. There's absolutely zero trace of Emma. The only thing left in the apartment is the doll, sitting very peacefully by the bedroom window facing outside, just watching. And finally, section 5. The cycle continues. Months later, a brand new tenant moves in and finds that same pristine doll inside the closet. Now, the original note warned about the window, right? But the new note is different. It reads, "Don't let Emma out after midnight." Just like Lily 30 years prior, Emma didn't just vanish. She became the very origin of the next iteration of the curse, permanently trapped within the doll itself. It is a perfectly structured loop of an urban legend. It takes us right back to the very beginning while totally escalating the horror. And honestly, it leaves us with a deeply unsettling thought to chew on. If normal, everyday objects can harbor such dark, forgotten histories, what unnoticed artifacts in your own home, maybe sitting on a shelf or hidden away in a closet, are watching you right now? Think about that tonight. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes open.